Hello, my name's Holly Mackay. I'm Managing Director of the Platform. I'm joined today by Paul Pettitt. Hi,
Morning.
Paul, who's the Managing Director of Origo. Paul, Origo, it's a name many people are familiar with, but can confuse as to what you actually do.
Yep.
You're a standards and an e-commerce business. Can you explain that for, as if you're explaining it to a child?
I'll keep it brief then. So we produce a range of standards to enable e-commerce between multiple systems in the advisor marketplace, so that those systems can talk to each other.
Okay. A common sort of language.
Common language, yeah. So that saves everybody having to develop their systems lots of different times for each other system that they want to talk to.
Okay.
And we have a range of services that allow advisors to do various things with providers and platforms, and also for the providers themselves to make processes within the advisor marketplace much more efficient, so pensions transfers, for example.
Okay. One thing I'd like to talk to you about is the work you've done about integration between platforms and back office software, because one of the bugbears for most advisors we talk to is that there's not very good integration between their CRM systems, the back office software and the platforms. Can you talk to us about the work that Origo has done in this area and the standards you've built?
So we've published some standards over the last 18 months which allow the data that's held in a CRM system, so from a fact find, for example, to be used on the platform for a particular purpose and then pushed back onto the CRM system to keep a record. That data might also be used in some of the off-platform tools that also need to communicate with both the platform and CRM system. So, for example, funds research, or risk profiling, or asset allocation. So these standards are pre-population, taking data into those tools or systems or platforms, then pushing it back into the CRM system. So an advisor has a single source of all of that data and a record of what he's been doing with that data as well, so it can be shared instead of retyped.
Okay. Because a lot of advisors still tell us that it's that ability to push data back from platforms to the back office software that isn't happening. So what you're telling us is the standards have been written,
standards there,
so that can happen.
Yeah.
So is it just lack of buy-in from the platforms and the
it's
software
probably more
providers?
competitive advantage at the moment, so some platforms are aware of it and are building that capability.
Okay.
And others might not be quite so aware or don't have it on their radar yet. So obviously with all the RDR type legislative things that people have to do, it might not be top of their list.
Okay, but for advisors for whom this is really important, it's something then to add to the due diligence list when they're looking at different providers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. If we can turn to talk about the options service that you've built, I know there are 3 bits to it, one bit is re-registration, which is clearly topical. Could you give us a quick whip through the options?
Yeah, okay. So if we look at the at-retirement piece, where a number of funds might be being consolidated into, say, an annuity or a drawdown, then options has enabled the transfer of those funds and the data that needs to be transferred between the seeding party and the annuity provider to happen much more quickly than it ever has done in the past. So transfer times are now down from the order of 50 working days down to about 9 calendar days, of which half is roughly the time for BACS transfer to take place.
Okay. And what's the buy-in to that been like? Are most providers
there are
on board?
29, I think, providers, platforms and SIP providers on options for that purpose.
Okay.
So that's pretty broad, and virtually everybody is operating within a 10 or 11, 12 day max timetable for that.
Okay.
Which is absolutely great from a customer point of view, because obviously their out of market risk is much lower, and their income pattern month on month doesn't change if they decide to take annuity when they retire. If we then look at the transfer accumulation phase, just transferring from one pension contract to another is much the same sort of process. So pre-options, that was about 35 working days pre-options, and that's now down to about 8 calendar days for that transfer to take place. And again, that might be a consolidation of 2 or 3 different pension contracts into one.
And are you seeing any trends about where the sort of providers, the money's moving away from the sort of providers that are picking up that business?
Not particularly at the moment, although the volumes going through options is increasing quite dramatically year on year, 20 or 30% year on year for the last 2 or 3 years. We've started to see more traditional providers with their back books coming on board now as well. So no doubt there is some movement from those older style contracts into the newer pension contracts and platforms. And so that's the pension transfer piece. And then if we look at re-registration, so in specie transfers, that's something that has to be in place because of RDR by the end of the year. So platform providers, SIP providers, are starting to engage with that process, starting to decide which transfer system they want to use, because there's obviously options and a couple of other competitors, and we're all starting to get ready now. We'll probably see services starting to go live the last quarter of this year.
Okay, and is that with all will this be, surely this can't be a competitive advantage for the platforms, is it a case of they've all got to do it, so they will?
Yeah, there's an RDR requirement to be able to re-register by the end of the year.
Okay, so from what you're seeing, by January next year, advisors will be able to re-register in an efficient way.
They should be able to do that,
from platform to platform.
Yep.
Okay.
Indeed.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming in and talking to us. I think that's made it clearer about Origo, and thanks for joining us,
Thank you
Paul.
very much. Pleasure.